welcome to the show. My name is Peter Pittendry, and today I'm joined by my friend, professional freelance mountain guide Teodor. Teodor has spent the last 3 months in the Cederberg wilderness, and I had the pleasure of catching up with him on a lunch break at his local internet cafe. The signal wasn't great, but I got to speak to him more about his trip to Mount Kenya and his solo climbing attempt that had me on the edge of my seat. I hope you enjoy. Hello.
How's it?
How are you, man?
Good news, man.
Not too bad. Are you in a tent?
No, I'm. This is it's like the restaurant at the accommodation I'm staying at. I'm staying in a cabin for the last 3 months during this whole lockdown. I just came out here. I lived in the Cederberg Mountains. Very nice.
Very cool, dude. Yeah, I think I've been to that. There's a little slackline outside the restaurant there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, Hanley and I think when we came down from the Cederberg, from the Free State, and we stopped there just before we got to the Parkes for the Highline Festival 2 or 3 years ago.
Cool.
Yeah, so shop for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I think there's a bit of a delay, but let's see how it goes. Thanks for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. You're my first guest, so we have all of 0 followers at the moment.
Yeah.
But, let's see how it goes, and I'm excited to chat to you a bit. So kind of just if you wouldn't mind giving a brief introduction of yourself, and then I'll give an introduction of yourself of you as well, and we'll see how the introductions line up. Sort of how I think about Teodor, and then who you actually are. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I'm a full-time professional freelance mountain guide based in Cape Town.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been working as a freelance guide for about 5 years. I operate tours for about up to 8 to 9 different companies, ranging from school leadership camps to very niche private high-end clients, from highly technical to soft skills. And I also do this mainly in summer, but when it's winter in Cape Town, the tourists, the capacity kind of, slows down, and I have Bulgarian nationality, and in the last 4 years, I started my own little thing in Bulgaria. So I've been back and forth to Bulgaria for the last 4 years and operating for the last 2 years successfully private tours in Eastern Europe and the Balkans. I can go on a bit about other parts of my work that I do with wild medics in terms of first aid courses instructing and getting involved in different aspects of guiding. Not just the actual guiding, but also in the instructional work of it. And also I contribute as much as I can to the Mountain Club when it comes to doing presentations, talks, inspiring local climbers through articles that I write for magazines, as well as for the MCSA journal, which gets published each year. So this is just a little quick summary, I guess,
awesome,
of what I do professionally.
Yeah, and I wanted to chat to you, especially. I mean, I've been trying to figure out how to do a structured podcast and trying to figure out sort of the flow of how these things will go. But I've kind of been a fly by the seat of my pants kind of guy for forever, really, and I kind of get the feeling that although you're very structured and professional, and I've climbed and hiked and spent time working and personally with you, but you're a kind of a jack of all trades. You're also busy with a project. I don't know. Can you speak about that project now? That's completely out of what you've just mentioned. Yeah.
Completely out of context. Back to the fact that I've been guiding for 5 years is that one interesting fact is that I haven't actually taken a holiday for about 5 years. But my work doesn't feel like work when I do it, because I meet people from all over the world, and I'm a people's person. I'm very fascinated about people's lives and learning from them. And this lockdown period, which has been quite an awesome experience for me. I've really enjoyed it. It's kind of forced me to have a holiday. I'm a bit of a workaholic. And so now that I have no people to walk around the mountain, I've just been focusing on myself and doing a lot, like mountains of reflecting, because I have 5 years worth of tours and personal adventures to reflect on. And I diarize a lot of important things, and I really have just been reflecting for the last 3 months. And in this time, I've written 2 books, one of which was a spontaneous prose book, which is just pure thought pattern that I first made recently. And then now today, actually this morning, I just finished my second one, which is a little bit more acceptable, open to public reading, I guess, because it's sort of like a fairy tale.
But yeah, I was so I kind of just wanted to chat to you. I mean, I think we could go on for hours and just talk about kind of your individual mountain experiences and experiences over the last 4 or 5 years. But I wanted to touch on just if you could share what's been keeping you busy for the last 3 months. I know writing, but how your experience has been during the lockdown, because I think everyone, especially in the guiding and tourism industries, had very different experiences. You know, a lot of people have been retrenched or been laid off, and have used this time to reflect, like you have, and start new ventures, or look for other opportunities. But I'm terrified that at some point South Africa, especially because of this extended period of lockdown that we've had, is going to lose a lot of really experienced and qualified guides to other industries, because the industry hasn't opened up, and there are very few people that can actually get through 3 or 4 months without an income. So if you could chat a little bit about sort of your experience over the last 3 months and reflect a little bit about that. I know it's very personal, so don't share what you can.
No, fine.
Cool.
No, I'm happy to talk about it. It's definitely something that's very close to my heart, is the development of mountain guiding in South Africa. Well, more importantly in Cape Town, which is the tourist hub of the country, if not the tourist hub of the entire continent. The little quote of mine, which I like to say, is that Cape Town is pretty much the Chamonix of Africa when it comes to mountaineering. Especially in the big mountains. And I think definitely the lockdown of this last 3 months has put a lot of pressure on a lot of tour guides who I know personally, but it certainly has sparked some oh, thanks man. Sorry, my lunch just arrived.
No worries.
So yeah, I think it's definitely sparked some ideas, and maybe given the industry a little bit of some time to think and restructure. I think it's necessary. I think there's still not 100% clarity in terms of like how the industry sort of operates in black and white format. It's kind of a little bit all over the place, especially when it comes to mountain guiding. Never mind tour guiding on all other aspects of adventures when it comes to sandboarding and shark diving, this or that. So I think something that hopefully might get better for a developing country like ours is that this time has maybe given guides an opportunity to really like reflect on how serious they take their job and how passionate they are about it. And if they really are all about what they do and are passionate, they will make a plan, and they will, if not write articles or train themselves up more, get books. Like I've personally, and some other guides who I know, we have assisted each other with referencing books of to explore our to expand our knowledge in terms of the local info. It comes from geology to bird life to flora to history to culture, etc. these are things as a guide. This is the beautiful thing about guiding in general, is that you develop yourself as a professional when you develop yourself as a person. There's very few jobs in the world which do this. Normally you are flushing your own intellect and your own self into someone else's growth, into someone else's company, into someone else's success. With guiding, what's beautiful is that you're not a company, you're an individual, and you support each other as in a community, and you are bettering yourself when you expand your abilities. In terms of income, yes, for sure, I know quite a few folks that are struggling, but I think struggle is good. Normally you have to take a few steps back before you take a big leap, and I think it's very important that people, also especially people who have had it all cushy all their lives, it's a nice little smack in the face sometimes for those folks. Yes, some people might have serious debt for certain investments that they went in, but from every slumber or downhill, from every uphill you hit, there will be a downhill on the other side. Life goes on, and I'm only saying this in such a harsh way, mainly because I come from a background where my parents immigrated from extreme poverty from Bulgaria, from Eastern Europe, and they came to a foreign country which they couldn't speak the language, and so I've just got a little bit of like raw experience with what it means to come from a very low background and work your way up. And I think you can only benefit in the lessons you will learn along your journey in this period of struggle, because people only you can only get better from this point on, if anything.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, I've had a slightly different experience with all of this, but I'm struggling, especially in South Africa, to find open and free content that people are talking about this very thing, how to get through struggles and help better someone else's circumstances through passion and dedication for a certain cause. I know that there are a lot of people that are very passionate about supporting industries like tourism that have been affected by all of this. But I really hope that this creates a lot of time for people to put content out to say, look, this is a recipe that I used to get through this kind of period where I didn't have an income. I hunkered down. I wrote a book. I created some cool content. I got it out to the public, and it really resonated with people. And this is how I got through this period. I think people we're definitely going to be living in a time now where there's going to be more content than we've ever seen. Right? I mean, now everyone's just
for
creating.
sure. And of course, no, you should 100%.
Sorry, I know that's a bit of a deep subject and quite a difficult one to peel through. So I kind of I wanted to chat to you a little bit about. I saw on Instagram about a year ago, you and a couple of guys went up, I don't know where, and you did an insane sort of private kind of bridge swing, mountain swing thing. Can you just for context,
expand?
Are you okay with me just sharing my screen? I've got your Instagram page up and just playing the video so people can see that, or is it? Are you?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
You open that? Cool. I just want to give a little bit of context behind it, so that people know what we're talking about, because it's not normal what you're doing, and it scared me half to death. All right, so this is, if anyone wants to follow Teodor, he's got a great Instagram page, Teodor_ILIEV. And you can, Teodor, can people reach out to you to book hiking and climbing adventures this way as well?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm more than happy to share my number. my +27 number for WhatsApp, and my email. That's a lot easier.
Okay.
Of course, through Instagram is also a perfect network inlet for work too. I'm very happy in all aspects. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So I'm not 100% sure. Just stop me when we get to the relevant area. For
that's it right there.
over here.
You went for the jump.
For the jump, yeah.
You're looking for the jump.
Yeah.
It's a little higher. A little higher. A little higher. Further up. It's on the left side. If you go up a bit more. Further up. Further up. Almost there.
All right.
I'll take a bite of this burger. So yeah, you can see I'm flying out about 130 meters down below into that black abyss. That was the first jump, actually. That was me jumping first for a giant rope swing that we built across two opposing walls of 550 meter high rock walls, which are the highest rock walls in the country. But yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's kind of what we pulled off. And actually, more excitingly is that we had a professional film crew with us, and
nice.
We are going to release. The film's already done, and the film will be released soon. We're just kind of still deciding how and what format and what manner we're going to release to the public, if we're going to group it together with a few other local South African adventure films, because we've made another one for a different thing as well. So we've just been busy with these cool, exciting, inspiring craziness.
So I just wanted to quickly brush back to the start of the video, because that was more interesting to me. It's the first time I've actually seen you terrified. I've climbed with you quite a bit, and just for anyone listening, like when I say I've climbed with Teo, it's more been like I've belayed Teo on very hard routes, and then he's helped me on like some really easy stuff, and let me climb sort of on some easy stuff. Teo's a climber. I'm just sort of a part-time enthusiast. So to see him scared is quite a nice thing. Yeah, the last time that I saw you, I think it was at City Rock in Cape Town, and you just finished climbing, and you kind of gave us a brief overview of an adventure that you went on. But you decided to wake up early in the morning and go for a climb, and there was a bit of ice involved, there was a bit of silliness involved, and can you talk about that a little bit, because it scared the hell out of me. So I mean it sounded epic. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So we just got cut off a little earlier, but in terms of that, just before I answer that question, when you mentioned that you seeing my face terrified, that was pretty much how my face looked, and in my mind what was going on was that I was accepting that if this was the way I was going to go, it was going to be one hell of a good ride out of this world. And so that was the facial expression of that exact thought, and accepting that very instant. But yeah, then going back to us meeting, at the gym. I just come back from guiding a tour, a mountaineering trip up Mount Kenya, which is the second highest mountain in Africa. Mount Kenya has a 300-meter technical rock climb to reach the summit, and it sits at about 5,900 plus meters above sea level. So altitude is a real deal. So after my trip, which I had been working with a company called Wild Medics as technical guide, we were snowed out on our original attempt to get a group of doctors up to the summit. So after our booze up and our party at the end of the tour, which was a hell of a lot of fun, there was a lot of nakedness going on and a lot of dancing and a lot of lot of moving of furniture in the hotel, which was good fun.
Mm-hmm.
But shortly after that trip, I decided spontaneously to not fly back to Cape Town, but instead go finish some unfinished business, which was my own personal mission.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked the company to please cancel my flights and use the money that they were going to pay me for my work to please reschedule my flight, and that I'm going to stay a little longer. So I cut into my profits, or my fee, my pay,
Mm-hmm.
and I pretty much decided to walk up to the base of Mount Kenya solo, packed my bag for 3 nights,
Mm-hmm.
paid my park fees, and walked up in one push, which normally takes the general tourists about 3 days to walk. Some might even take a little longer to acclimatize, but yeah, on average about 3 days. I walked straight to the base, but on my way up, I got hit by a snowstorm, which was extremely unlucky, especially getting hit with a snowstorm twice in a row when trying to go for this peak. Once with the group of doctors, and now on my solo attempt.
Mm-hmm.
And in between these two snowstorms was the most perfect weather, the most perfect conditions. But something in the air was just saying, Theo, you're not going up there. But I wouldn't listen. And that evening when I made it through the snow and wind and ice, which was just catapulting into my body as I was walking, all my kit, everything I had was completely soaked. I was shivering and I couldn't feel my extremities. So I kicked open this door of this hut called Shipton's Hut. And luckily, I already made some friends with the local porters on my previous trip. So I kicked down the door, and all the regular tourists were all having their hot soup, all comfy or cushy. And I came in there soaking wet, and there's a storm outside. And I took all my clothes off. I was completely naked, right there in front of all these random people. But I didn't care. I knew I needed to get the clothes off me. And I changed into my dry set of clothes. And luckily, one of the local porters, he remembered me, and he came and brought me some soup and gave me some food for free, because I actually had no money I couldn't pay for any warm food in this moment. But I had my own gas, my own things. But my hands were so cold that it was the last thing I was thinking to do in this very moment. So yeah, there was a very nice moment with some of the local guys.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I decided to, because I couldn't afford to stay in the hut, the porters let me sleep in their part of the cabin in the back, so the tourists and etc. But I'm sure in general, if I had to ask, it would have been fine. But it shows the customary friendliness of the locals there in Kenya.
Yeah.
And so then next day I walked up closer to the base. Now the mountain is just packed with snow. It's white. I'm actually busy with an article. Actually, no, I'm not busy with an article at the moment, but I will be writing an article on this journey, on this trip of mine to Kenya soon. So I'll send you the written article with all photos, etc. But the mountain is white. The last thing you want to do is go up the thing, especially after fresh snow. And I decided that I have nothing else, nothing to lose. So I'm just going to hang out, and hopefully the ice melts in the next day or two, because that's all I had. I had a day or two to take on this peak. So I sat through the whole day drying all my clothes in the sun on a little rock, and I built a bivouac camp, which is pretty much like a lean-to. Found some old metal near the foot of the mountain, and probably from some, who knows what, some crashed plane or whatever. I just found some old metal and leaned it against this rock to create a little space where I could sleep. And I waited a full day, and the ice, I was observing the mountain the whole time, and slowly got better. Something that happened, which was quite special, was that I experienced, not for the first time, but a close encounter with a leopard. I didn't see the leopard, but while I was building my bivvy camp, I took a stroll to go have a look around for some more rocks that I could use. And right behind my rock, my boulder, there were fresh leopard prints in the snow. And because the snow had just fallen the night prior, that leopard could have easily have been anywhere near 100 to 500 meters away from me at this very moment, which was quite an interesting thought to have in your head when in a foreign country.
And at this point, you're completely alone, right?
Yeah, I'm alone now. I've already left that other hut,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm completely in the wild there. There's no, I'm far away from any kind of huts at this point. I'm pretty much at the base of the mountain, at the foot of the mountain, so as high as one can be before climbing the thing, because the rock, to reach the summit, you have to rock climb. So it's just that's the excitement of this peak. Unlike Kilimanjaro is a hiking peak, so you can hike to it a lot easier, of course with the assistance of porters and all that, but yeah, so I'm completely alone. And then the next day I
just before you carry on, so you're completely alone, you're kind of staying in this little shelter, you've seen a leopard spoor. What's going through your head? How are you going to protect yourself from this leopard? Because I can imagine you got quite creative about what you would do in case it came back.
No, I didn't really think about protecting myself. It's just more like, yeah, there's not much you can do, eh? They're feeling like they're feeling for a little human. But you know, I knew that there's from my previous 12 days, or was it 10 or 12 days I spent on the mountain already with the group of doctors. I had quite a lot of experience in that area, so I'm not coming completely inexperienced into this situation. And I had known that there was more than enough wildlife on the mountain to keep that leopard well fed. So I didn't really worry about the guy. I made sure I brushed my teeth. That's at least if that helps. You wouldn't feel like taking a little whiff and biting my face off.
I see. Okay, I interrupted you, but carry on. Sorry.
Okay. So anyway, so then the next morning in the dark, pretty much I just started up the first quarter of the route, which is called it's like the bowling alley. The reason it's called the bowling alley is because, which was exactly what I always had to deal with, was because in the morning the sun rises, and when the sun comes up, it melts ice high up on the peak, because it's the peak which gets hit first with the sun. So therefore the ice on top melts first, and therefore the stones and rocks which have been cemented by the ice start falling. And to begin the route, you have to climb up like a chimney, a chute, quite a large one, but not a lot of room for movement. So my first obstacle actually was the darkness. My first obstacle was learning for the first time to climb wearing tackies, which are like sneakers. I was wearing sneakers when I was climbing. This was the grade of the climb for myself is quite low, and I knew that I could climb it solo without any ropes or protection. So while I was climbing, I had a headlight, and the headlight would shine onto the rock, and wherever the light shone back at me, I knew that there is verglass. And verglass is a very thin, frozen water layer on the rock surface, and it's extremely slippery. It's like ice, pretty much. So I knew I couldn't step there or put my hands there. So I used my headlight looking down and observed the reflections of the rock and the dark to know where I could put my feet and where I couldn't, because the verglass is completely see-through. It looks just like rock. So I was using this very slight reflections to figure out where to put my feet in between the dry patches. And as I was moving up, I had a moment where I went off route, and things got very difficult. And my number one rule I told myself when I was soloing was that if I cannot reverse what I've just done, then I need to stop, or I need to not do that move. So with climbing, you perform sort of acrobatic moves up rock face, and some of the moves can be quite difficult. And I personally gave myself a rule for the sake of my survival, was that if the move was too hard and I wouldn't be able to do it back again and backwards, reverse it, I wouldn't make the move. And I started to do a series of hard moves, breaking my number one rule quite early on, and thinking that, that maybe it's just a little tricky because of the darkness in the glass. And I soon found myself on a completely blank, smooth slab, standing on a tiny, sort of a tiny lip of rock about the size of my iPhone, with my tackies, which have hardly got any tread on them. And I started to freak out a little bit. I tried to reverse my moves and I couldn't, and I was a little stuck, and I didn't know how to get out of the situation just yet. But I calmed myself down and I breathed, and you need to calm down before you can make any wise decisions. And I started to look around, and I found a little slot where I could fit a nut. And nuts are these pieces of equipment that we use to protect ourselves when trad climbing or alpine climbing. I had a nut which I wiggled into this little groove, and it managed to stick. I was very happy. I was carrying a rope on my back so that I could descend the mountain once I reached the top. I had a single 60-meter rope, and then I rappelled off the single nut to get back down to another ledge where I could restart, since I went off route. And then that was close call number one. So I continued up now the correct line.
How far were you up at that point? Sorry, I want to try and picture, because already I'm freaking out. My hands are sweating.
Some context.
Yeah. So how long had you been climbing before you placed the nut to rappel down?
So I was probably about, I don't know, like 60 meters up off the ground, maybe 60 meters off the ground, which is like, I don't know what size story that would be. That's about a 20 story building or something like that, or 15-story building.
And
anyway,
and
so
what kind of no, hang on, because this is terrifying. What kind of grading are you climbing in your tennis shoes now, roughly?
The grade it's grade 16. So, but out there in alpine terrain, I mean, when I was pulling those hard moves, they were feeling, this is South African grading. So in American or French grading, it would be like, I guess, 5C or something like that, 5B. And of course, because of the conditions, it was feeling more like maybe like 20, 21. So quite spicy, I would say. That was my close call number one.
Okay.
I retraced my steps back to the large ledge, and I decided I looked around the corner and saw I'd missed the line which I was supposed to take. So now I was back en route, and now my second close call began. And it started with sound, and the sound was sort of like in World War II they have these planes which sound a siren. Goes, pew! And that sound was exactly what I was hearing. Was rocks flying from very high up on this 300-meter piece of rock, flying from high up, melting from the top, from the tip of the peak, or the ridges that come off the peak, were just rocks slipping and sliding down ice chutes and gaining speed. And as they arrived into the bowling alley, they would create this sound, this horrifying sound. And I knew that only the big ones made the real loud sounds, and I could hear big sounds coming, but only small rocks were passing me. So there was something on the way. And so in this instant, I quickly traversed under a little bit of a overhang piece of rock and waited for the sound to pass. And as I expected, a huge torpedo of rock just came shooting down the gully, one after the next, and pieces come flying, and I just hang out on the rock face for a while, until it calms down, and and then I decided to continue up. So that was my close call number 2.
Okay, close call number 2. So you first went off route into a really spicy section with tennis shoes, couldn't climb anymore. You rappelled off of one single nut, back down to the ledge, then a whole bunch of rock fall. You're hiding under a little ledge. I mean, these are potentially kind of very dangerous situations. Now, in my head, I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, I've tried. That's me done. I'm heading back down again. But I suppose that's why I'm not, a proper climber, so to speak. But now, just what are you thinking in your head? Okay, I'm going to carry on. What is it about that situation that makes you say, let me carry on going?
Well, the reason I felt okay to carry on is because I read the dangers as they arrived very well, and I was still moving along swiftly, and I didn't have any other reason to turn back other than, of course, almost dying twice. But the point is that I had foreseen the moments before I had been taken by surprise. I think that's probably what was the deciding factors, that I foresaw the issues, of course, just moments before it could have been tragic. So then I continued up, and so then I passed a large section called the amphitheater, which was a maze, pretty much a maze of sloping rock face, pretty much a giant slab, and all over the slab randomly there were just large patches of verglas and small patches of snow, and so I had to kind of sort of choose a line of safest journey through this maze of ice and slippery terrain, which was quite taxing. But once I had passed the amphitheater section, then I arrived at a very highly exposed ridge called Furman's Tower. And Furman's Tower is the crux of the route. And this is maybe about 200 meters up now. So I'm about 2/3 of the way to the top, something like that. I think maybe it's a little less than 2/3. But in terms of the serious climbing, it's the majority of the serious climbing is done once you have passed Furman's Tower. Okay. So I was making good progress on this very exposed ridge, but the snow was very thick because the ridge is quite jagged, and it catches the snow in these buckets. So every time I stepped, my foot would sink, and because I was just wearing like sneakers, my toes were starting to get wet in my shoe, and I was very worried about that because I knew that once I can't feel my feet, climbing will become very difficult. Because I needed to feel where to step, and also I was a little worried that if my feet get too cold at such high altitude and stay wet, I could start making nerve damage. So these were the thoughts in my mind when I was on this very exposed, rugged ridge, and finally I came to a corner, and this corner of rock had a big step, and the step was probably, I don't know, maybe 3 meters high, 2.5 meters high, and there happened to be an old piece of equipment left in the rock crack, a piton by, of course, older ascensionists. And usually with mountaineering, when you see a piton, it means it's going to be a tricky section. It means that the potential of falling is most probably high at this point. Because I had never climbed the route before, I assumed this, and I was wearing a harness on me as I was soloing. I pulled a 60 centimeter sling, which is a sort of a piece of sling, nylon sling, which I clipped to my harness. or cord and clipped to the piton. Just before I took on this corner, just in the moment, just clipped because I could see it looks quite tricky. And as I pulled over the corner, my foot slipped on the verglass, because it's kind of hard to see in the daytime. Actually, I would say verglass is easier to bypass in nighttime because of the reflection than it is in the day, because it just looks like rock. And I fell onto the piton. Actually, I slipped and fell. And if I wouldn't clip that piton, I would have actually fallen, probably to my death, a few hundred meters down. But in this moment, I still could have decided to continue up, and because I had foreseen this moment I had foreseen this moment too, and made a wise decision to clip the piton in a spontaneous, kind of gut feeling moment, that I thought, that's pushing the limits a little bit too much now, and I'm happy with how far I got. And at this point, I was moving so quickly. It was only about 8 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. And for most people who climb this in teams, who start at the same time, by 8 they would only have been done with the first sort of section of the shoot. So there is a benefit with moving as a solo, in terms of speed, but of course your safety is thrown right out the window.
Yeah.
So you just need to be a lot more alert and heightened in your senses throughout the whole process.
Jeez. So that was close call number 3 on the taking a fall on the piton, and at this point you're now going to rappel down. So you've got your rope out, and I mean you've not reached the summit, but you've
yeah. So then I decided I was I called quits at that stage because it was 3 close calls. So I just started abseiling down, but there weren't abseil points everywhere. There's some cord left behind from previous ascensionists, but not too much, especially because the snow was covering a lot of these sections. So I would build my own little wrap point. So I was carrying some cord, and I would wrap it around a boulder, or a pinch point, which is like where 2 boulders meet. So 2 large boulders may meet at a very usable point where I can put a rope easily around a narrow section, and I can weight it with my rope, and then throw my ropes down and abseil down the mountain in sections.
Jeez, man. Well, that's thank you for telling that story. I appreciate it, and I'm happy that you made a wise decision to come down, and you're still here with us, providing us with some epic stories. But yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you. And I think that's my hope for this podcast is to share stories like this, because I've heard it once before, and I remember being terrified listening to it. But now I have sort of some context behind what you kind of went through, and yeah, man, I can't believe the kind of things that you do. I'm happy to have you in my life. A little section of you anyway to see. Yeah, man, I've climbed with you. You're an incredible guide. Your personal climbing and your guiding is obviously 2 very, very different things. But one of the, if not the safest, I would say probably one of the safest kind of safety conscious guides I've ever worked with. Always mindful of your surroundings, and every time we've worked together, I think 3 or 4 times it's been a pleasure. I've done some training courses of yours when you were at Venture Forth, super informative. And if anybody is ever looking for a climbing guide on Table Mountain, I think you're the go-to guy that I always refer people to. So thanks for taking the time to chat, man. It's been epic, and good luck with your book.
Thank you.
Please, let me know once it's ready for our viewing pleasure, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah, man, and I also appreciate having you in my life, 100%.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I will never forget. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I might be mistaken. Was I with you and Hanley when you guys met at Lakeside?
Yes, you
Or
were.
where did
Yeah.
you guys meet? Okay,
Not.
so you guys did.
So that was
Where did you guys meet?
that was the first time we officially kind of uh, but we met
Clocked each other.
yes, yeah, we actually met each other at a high at Rhodes with that slack line over the water. You know that at Rhodes in the reservoir they put the slack line over the water at
Kirblom. At the UCT there
at
by
UCT,
close to the roads. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay, cool. Yeah.
So we actually met there. I kept helping her onto the thing, and she was, for some unknown reason, she was trying to waterline with a bikini on, and it wasn't going too well for her. It was the first time she tried.
It was going very well for you.
It was going brilliantly for me, but hence me trying to help her the whole time. And yeah, that's actually the first time we met. But I mean, we did the Highline Festival with you, and Honey and I had one of the best adventures of our life. We woke up at like 3 a.m. We got in the bakkie and we drove to Maltese Cross, and you led Maltese Cross for us in the middle of winter. It was freezing.
Yeah.
It must have been around this time of year. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah, it was bloody cold, and
it was like very cold.
Yeah, you led the route up, and then Honey and myself seconded, and we got some incredible photos and memories from that trip, and we would have never been able to climb that without you. So I really appreciate that little experience, and it was something definitely that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Nothing to the extent of your kind of adventures, but it was definitely special.
It's still very special, man.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I really appreciate it, and I wish you all the best with all your kind of ventures. And enjoy your climbing and time in the desert.
Thank you, man. I am and will.
Awesome. All right, buddy.
Cool.
Have a good one.
All the best. Bye.
Cheers now. Bye.
Bye.